Hey guys, I am doing class 2 now. So what we do is kind of continue our rules. So if you get your service dog in training, we want to immediately start teaching them how to stay put in the floorboards of the passenger side of the car. But you can also have them in back floorboards if you have a bigger car, but the best I've found was just right next to you on your floorboards, so you'll need to do a lot of training with that before you get the car in motion. So always either have them on the floorboards or put them in a harness and clip the harness on the back to tie on the seatbelt, so when the seatbelt stops, they go forward, but it's not on their necks where they can strangle themselves or have damage to their trachea. And if you're traveling with your dog further than an hour away and it's not something that you frequently do, we do need you to ask for permission, and also it lets us know where our dog is at all times, especially since we have veterinary sponsors most of the time. So if you're further away, it's going to be more costly for us if you have an emergency happen over there, and we just need tabs on our dogs all the time. So just be back and forth with us and we'll be happy. And we don't teach our dogs to speak or bark or anything noisy or disruptive unless we otherwise tell you to, if you have a dog with a really bad barking problem. But otherwise, we want to tell them quiet when they bark, and once they do become quiet, we give them a treat for being quiet, and if they stay quiet, we give another treat. You know what I mean? So we can work on those individually if your dog's a barker. But for the most part, a lot of the barking is a demand barking issue where they're getting rewarded for barking, or it's self-reinforcing. So those can be a little difficult. So be in touch with us if you find that's an issue. But puppies are going to bark while they're in the kennel for a while. So that's fine. So we're going to talk a little more about the actual training stuff in this class. We, on the notes, start with operant conditioning, but there is another style of conditioning or learning. It's called classical conditioning. So this is by Pavlov. You might have heard Pavlov's dogs, where they ring a bell and the dog salivates, and they pair that together. So if you were to ring a bell to a dog just in nature, or at your house, if they didn't have any conditioning before, it's not going to elicit any response. But food, on the other hand, will elicit a response. So if you pair the bell with the food enough times, they're going to be associated together. And what Pavlov found is if you ring the bell and they've been paired, that'll still elicit the same response, salivating, like the food did. So you can make a conditioned stimulus with an unconditioned response, pair them together. So basically, it's not super important that you know the details of that, but what classical conditioning is and how we play a part in that. Duchess! Or not Duchess, her name's Majesty. What are you doing? I don't trust puppies running around. You want to say hi? There she is when she was a puppy, when we have this video. Oh, there she is. Oh, she bites me. But anyways, so what we do with classical conditioning is we pair that clicker sound with a treat. So the dogs eventually learn that anytime that they hear the click, they're getting a treat. So how you charge the clicker or your yes word is by repeating them together a lot. Once your dog kind of knows the pairing, you may not need to redo this charging. But what you would do is say, click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, wait, click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, click, treat, and see if they're starting to understand what that means. After a while, if you let them zone off and do their own thing, and then you click, shortly after, and they turn their head to you to get that treat, they know what the click means, and you can move on to your training. But that would be classically conditioning a click to get the dog to understand that they're going to get their treat. So we get that salivating, excited response because they know they're going to get some treats. So operant conditioning, Skinner, all that other stuff, what we want you to know, most importantly, is the quadrants of operant conditioning, because we operate mostly on positive reinforcement in our training sessions, so it's important that you understand what that actually means in comparison to other stuff. So operant conditioning positive does not always mean good or happy or what you would normally associate positive with being. Positive in this situation just means adding a stimulus to the situation, and punishment and reinforcement actually have a little bit of a different definition as well. So reinforcement is when you are increasing the likelihood that that behavior will happen again, and punishment is you're decreasing the likelihood that that dog will elicit the response again. So, and negative means you're taking away a stimulus. So in the quadrants, if you look at the notes, we have them lined up, so it's easier for you to understand. So if we're positive reinforcement based mostly, then we are adding a stimulus that's going to increase the likelihood that a behavior will occur again. So we are reinforcing with a treat that they like. In some cases, the dogs may not like treats and they prefer other reinforcers. So it's a reinforcement, and what a punishment is in the eyes of the learner. So we are adding a treat to increase the behavior, the likelihood that the behavior will happen again. So that's what we mostly do. But we also use other things like negative reinforcement. Not as much, but we do. So negative means we're removing a stimulus to increase the likelihood that that behavior will happen again. For example, some of our dogs wear a gentle leader because they pull really hard on the leash. So if they pull, there's going to be pressure on their muzzle. And as soon as they stop pulling, that pressure removes, and it increases the likelihood that they won't pull on the leash again. So likewise, in the real world situation, if you are driving without a seatbelt, your car is likely dinging, ding, ding at you. So if you don't plug it in, it's going to continue to ding. But if you plug in your seatbelt or fasten your seatbelt, the dinging stops. So you're going to increase the likelihood that you put the seatbelt on next time because you don't want to hear that annoying ringing. So that's negative reinforcement. And positive punishment is something we stay away from like 99% of the time. So we don't like forcing our dogs to do anything. So if they're needing positive punishment to become a service dog, it's likely that we may need to reconsider their job or career change them or just be a pet. So positive punishment is adding something to decrease the likelihood that that behavior is going to happen again. So I guess again with the pulling on the leash, if a dog's pulling on the leash and you were to do something like leash correct, pop them in the nose, it hurts, so they're less likely to pull on the leash next time. But I think that it's not the greatest option to, it'll give you the same results, but internally the dog's not going to have as a happy of a experience, and it can damage the relationship with you and the dog, and it can make them really frustrated, increase some aggression. And a lot of times we only punish when we're upset, so it's not consistent, and it's just not something that you should mess around with if it's not consistent. Not saying that other trainers can't do that, because some trainers are able to do that, and that is their last resort. So that's something that we don't automatically go to. That's like one of the very last things we would ever consider. So adding a stimulus like spanking a child for misbehaving, you're less likely to misbehave next time. That's positive punishment. Negative punishment, negative again, removing something and to decrease the likelihood that it will happen again. So in this situation, just like in real life, removing, so okay, sorry. If the dog is pulling on the leash, we don't move anywhere because they want to go forward. So we're not even going forward in this situation. So when they pull, we just stop completely. We're removing the fact that we're going more forward, because that's reinforcing, to make them stop pulling next time. So as soon as they walk nicely next to you, they keep going. Also, removing stuff to increase the decrease the likelihood that will happen again. So if you're doing negative punishment is like when a kid is bad, they said, okay, you're grounded and you can't watch TV anymore. So you're less likely to misbehave next time, but you're getting things taken away, like your ability to watch TV, some toys that you have, things like that. So positive punishment, you're adding something. This is what we stay away from. Negative punishment, we totally do this because we also say dog's jumping up on you and you just completely ignore them and they stop doing that. And there, we just fix the problem. So punishment's not always terrible. It just, there's certain types of it. And reinforcement is making the behavior to happen more likely. And some other things that are in line with this is extinction. So it's not in your notes, but if you trained a dog to do something like sit and they stop doing sit, well, it might be because you want to first see if they're having any issues, like they're healthy, and then we take that out. And then if they're not sitting anymore, you might not be rewarding them like they used to be. So if you stop rewarding them, they end up not doing it anymore. Like if I'm exercising and I want to lose weight and I'm not losing any weight and it's been like a year and I've been stuck to the exercising thing, I may stop exercising because I'm not getting any results. So that's the case with extinction. But you can also have like spontaneous recovery where they just try it out again, and but you don't need to know all that information yet. But we also use luring a lot, especially when they're baby puppies. So we take a treat and we make them move in the position we want. So if we want them to stand next to us, we use the treat and make them stand next to us. Or if we want them to go underneath the seat, we move the treat underneath the seat and have them go in there. And another thing we use is capturing. So with that, I also think of capturing like taking a picture of what's going on right then and there. So you're catching the dog doing something right. So if the dog never lays down when you're trying to lure them into position or you're trying to train it, they just never do it. Well, at some point, they're going to end up offering that behavior. So after they've exercised all night long with their friends, they eventually lay down. You can click and treat so long as the dog knows that click means a treat and that's a correct behavior we're training. You can give them a treat and they're going to be like, well, they liked this. So if they stay in that position, click and give another treat. Wait a little bit longer, click and give a treat, and then they'll start to understand this is what they want. Okay, I understand what you're saying. So I'm capturing the moment. Some other stuff that we will cover in the next video, I will do a part 2.